Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. I know we're having so much fun networking, taking pictures. I'm just going to give a few minutes for us. A few minutes here is about 60 seconds for us to find our way back to our seats so we can officially begin. Everyone at the back, please, can we come to our seats? Or maybe we should play a game. The last person to get to their seats will sing the new national anthem. What, sorry? The prize for the first person. No, I said the last person to get back to their seats. Or we'll play a song and they will come and dance in front, one of the two. See, they are ready. They are ready to play that song for the last person that sits on their seat. We're not starting because I'm waiting for people to sit on their seat. And please, we do have some free space in front. I know some of us prefer to sit at the back, but feel free to move forward. Mr. Tunde Onokaya. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sheila Ojay, and welcome to the Sterling Leadership Series. Round of applause for Sterling Bank. It is truly an honor to be here today to have conversations with our guest speaker, as well as every one of us. But just a recap of the last one that we had a few weeks ago, I believe at the Arts Cafe, we had conversations around climbing beyond with Dr. Segun Odegbami. And I remember very well some of the key points for us there was the importance of integrity, failure, and collaboration towards success. One of the quotes which I took away with me, and I think is very much aligned to what we have today, is that as a person, you should be able to find opportunities even in chaos. That is, even when everyone is complaining about everything happening, there are opportunities to soar higher. And tying that to what we have today, the theme of conquering the world. And conquering the world is not only a bold and ambitious theme, it represents a mindset, a vision, and a call to action to each and every one of us. Today we have the fantastic opportunity to discuss with someone who has been conquering the world since 2014, and maybe from the day he was born. We'll find out today. And that special guest is Mr. Tunde Onokaya, who most of you have been taking pictures with and having the opportunity to network with him. I hope you didn't ask him the questions that you were meant to ask, like in advance. You didn't ask him. Okay, fantastic. That's great. Mr. Tunde Onokaya is a true Nigerian icon whose influence extends far beyond the chessboard. Raised in Nigeria, Tunde discovered the transformative power of chess early on. His passion for the game and social change led him to create Chess in Slums, an initiative that uses chess to educate and uplift underprivileged children in Lagos. His initiative has profoundly impacted many children, promoting critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and confidence. Recognized globally, Tunde's work highlights chess's potential as a tool for social change. In early 2024, Tunde set a Guinness World Record for the longest chess marathon in New York, bringing international attention to his mission. His dedication to the game and commitment to making a difference shines through his achievement. Before founding Chess in Slums, Tunde excelled as a player and coach. His experiences and passion for community upliftment inspire his work. Tunde's vision includes establishing chess academies, providing scholarships, and creating sustainable educational models through chess. His story of resilience and innovation exemplifies how dedication can transform lives and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Tunde Onokaya. All right. Thank you so much, Tunde, for your time today. We do not take this very lightly. So usually the way this works is we will have our conversation and we will then have questions from the audience. I would like to ask that if you have a question, please feel free to raise up your hand and we will get to you. I will try this time to make sure we can take as many questions. Last time I was accused of not taking so many questions, but today I'll make sure that we actually take quite a number of questions. So Tunde, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Chess. I tried learning chess when I was younger. I think there were only two games my parents allowed me to play, Scrabble and chess. Scrabble was easier for me because it was just words. Chess, on the other hand, required a lot of thinking. Looking back at your experience and with everything that you have achieved, how would you say, or what would you say conquering the world means to you as a person and also as the founder for Chess in Slums?
All right, I would like to say thank you so much for having me, and for everyone that also showed up today, thank you so much for coming out to listen to just my experiences, and thank you to Sterling Bank for putting this together as well. It's such a great honor to be here and to be able to share my story. And on conquering the world, that's such a huge thing. It's such a huge thing to claim to conquer the world, but I believe in the very little things. And I think conquering the world, especially within the context of my own life, my journey, my experiences, really is learning how to do, great things in a very small way. And I've said this a couple of times that, it is indeed possible to do great things from a small place. But recently, I've come to learn that great things almost certainly are done from small places. And I think conquering the world really is such a huge, big, magnificent thing. But it's really in conquering the little things. And when you conquer the little things over time, that progress compounds, then the world pays attention to it eventually. So for me, conquering the world really is doing great things from a small place.
Thank you. That's actually very profound. So conquering the little things, taking it like one step at a time. So looking at your journey with Chess and Slums, it has been extraordinary. I'm one of those fans who have been watching from afar and seeing how lives are being changed. And I'm sure you have so many stories of children, of people who have been impacted. Is there any specific story where you witnessed a significant transformation in a child through chess?
There are many stories, but this story is always my favorite one to tell. But before I share the story, I would like to give some context, because I think the one question that I get very often is, why? What drives you? Why do you even do this? How does one wake up someday and decide that chess, such an elitist game, can be meaningful to children in slum communities? And I can imagine 7 years ago too, when I had this idea in my head and I started telling people about it. It didn't make sense to a lot of people. But what most people didn't understand was it was a very personal thing for me. I'm going to talk about the story of Ferdinand, the 10-year-old kid that I met in the slums of Makoko. But I'm going to tell a bit of my story as well, so you understand how our lives have become intertwined. I grew up in Ikorodu. Did anyone grow up in Ikorodu here as well? Okay, I see you. Okay. We went to school together. I grew up in Ikorodu, in a really small place. And we didn't have a lot of things. And, you know, when people think about poverty, right, the West likes to describe poverty as living below the $2 line. You know, I don't think that aptly captures what poverty really means and the tragic consequences of it. I think the real consequence of poverty is how people are completely removed from systems, education, rule of law, everything, just basic human decency. They do not have access to it. And they do not even know that it exists. And that is how deep poverty goes, that a child is born into a situation because he has missed out on the lottery of birth. He is conditioned by the situation and the environment in which he grew up in before he has his own agency. And that was my story as well. You know, growing up in Ikorodu, you know, my parents were not educated, and they did try to ensure we got an education. But, you know, after primary school, I had to drop out of school for 2 years because there was no money. And it was in that time I found chess in a barber shop. I would always go there and to watch other kids play video games. And one of those days, he brought out a small plastic chessboard. And that was the first time I ever saw a chessboard. And I would always ask him, what does this do? What can this do? I was a very curious child. And he would say, you're too young to learn. But I would always go back there, you know, to watch them play. And after watching, I'll pick up the rules of the game. And the summary is chess gave me a way to find that place in the world. And I found my place in the world because I learned this thing and I became really good at it. And it made me believe that I could become anything I wanted. And I went to school on a scholarship because of it. So chess really did change my life in many ways. Beyond the cognitive benefits and the strategy that everyone likes to talk about, it gave me confidence in my own ability. And it gave me an intellectual identity. So 4 years ago actually now, I met a kid in Makoko. We had started the project in Ikorodu. The idea really was just to use the same chess that changed my life to give other children like me the same opportunity to find their place in the world as well. Then we went to Makoko, and for those who probably don't know Makoko, it's the largest floating slum in the world. When you're passing over Aton Milan Bridge, that community just on wooden stilts on the water. And we went there and said we wanted to teach the kids chess because a lot of the kids don't go to school. You know, and it was even worse because a lot of them would only grow to become fishermen because the idea of success in a community like that is to be a fisherman, right? I wanted to show them that there was a world much larger than that place, there was a world out there where they could become data analysts, where they could work in these fancy companies. And they needed to see that. So we went there with chessboards and we selected 100 children, we profiled them, we did a vulnerability assessment, we talked to the chief of the community, he gave us a spallas, we set up, and we started teaching the kids. And on the second day of training, there was this boy that came in, and I noticed that the other kids would always bully him, and they would tell him not to come into that place. It was a boy living with a disability. But now I don't even call it disability anymore. He was differently abled. But the way he communicated with the world was something they didn't understand. So they called him an imbecile because of it. He had cerebral palsy. And he would always come, and the other kids would always bully him. He walked in a very funny way. He couldn't speak. And he was bullied. And when I saw him, I asked him what his name was. He couldn't say anything. He tried to mumble some words, but I couldn't hear. But I told him to join the class. And I put him in a class, and, we went about training. I think the second day, the coach in that class now came to meet me, and he was crying. I was like, "What happened, Sam?" He said, "Tunde, come and see something." And he took me to the table where this kid was playing. And the exercise on that day was that giving the kids this complex night geometry to solve. And the boy got it. And that was a hard thing to solve, even for me. But he got it just after a few hours of learning. And I thought it was special immediately. And we just kept watching, and we kept training the kids, for the next 3 weeks. And at the end of the training period, we decided to do a tournament for them. And we dressed all the kids up in nice suits because we wanted them to carry the prestige that chess has. We didn't want them to be represented like slum kids. We wanted them to look dapper, just like me. And Ferdinand showed up on that day. It was the first time he ever wore a suit. And guess who won the tournament for the junior category? It was Ferdinand. And his mother came, and I remember the first English words he ever said was champion, champion, champion. And one of the coaches told him to say champion, and he was able to just mumble those words together. And Ferdinand's story, is a familiar one. A child whose first language was chess. The only way I was able to express that genius that was inside of him was through chess. He had never been to school before, and there was almost no hope. His parents live in extreme poverty in one of the worst slums in the world. And Ferdinand has gone on, to win many more games. I've done well in a couple of tournaments. And later this year, we'll be traveling abroad for the first time, to compete. And that's a beautiful story that I always like to remember, because that reality of Ferdinand being trapped in one of the worst slums in the world where no one sees the potential that he has. But potential is nothing if it's not realized. And there are millions of other children like that if someone doesn't stand in that gap and give them a way to express themselves, will never get to know what they can truly become. And so Ferdinand's story is one, that shows how chess can be such a powerful way to help children find their voice, and more importantly, to help them find their own intellectual identity. And if you just give them an ounce of opportunity, you'd just be astounded by what they can do with it.
Thank you. Please feel free. Something you've said, and you've said quite a number of times, is chess helping a child to find their intellectual identity. Still talking about chess and slums, it is one thing where you have a child who's interested, and then there's another where you have a parent who isn't. How are you able to sort of not just impact the child's life, but be able to also convince the family to allow the children take on chess?
It's always really hard because the first question they would ask you is it chess we're going to eat? So it's so hard to explain the value of something they don't understand or they've never seen. Now it's a lot easier because, it's already a popular project, and they've now seen the success stories of some of the other kids. and they want their kids to be like that. But at the beginning, it was really hard because the parents would rather their kids do menial jobs, like go arc rather than come for chess. But this was what I did because it was a really big problem. The kids that I knew were so intelligent and had so much potential, they couldn't participate because, their parents needed them to do something, They didn't understand the value of it or even the value of sending the kids to school. So I would go to the houses of the parents. I'll talk to them. I'll go to the leaders of the community. I'll tell them to call all the parents together, right? So we could tell them why this is important. That I wasn't going to put food immediately on the table. And just really being able to communicate the value of delayed gratification. Now, this is an investment into your child's life. And I think it kind of helped us really understand, how to rethink the idea of charity and generosity. The language of most of the people in that community is you go there, you distribute food, and everyone is happy, right? That makes sense. But what happens, the next day, right, when they're hungry again? It really isn't sustainable. But I think the most beautiful thing you can ever do in this life is to find talents that is unseen, unrealized. Then you just empower them with that high conviction through chess. And you just watch them change their own lives. Because whatever you teach the mind, everything else follows. So we go all the way by involving the leaders of the community, engaging the parents, and letting them understand. And eventually, they start to trust us. Like, okay, let them go today. Maybe tomorrow they won't go. So with that, we start to engage them. Then when we now begin to take more responsibility for the kids, like, this kid is talented. We can't put them in school and pay for their tuition. And the parents now, hands off. Thank you. And so that has helped us over time.
Wow, that's great. Now, speaking on leaders of communities, they hold a very key position, significant position. How have you seen that through your initiative, you've been able to impact communities as well?
I think one of my favorite projects that really, really tells the story of like community engagement was when we went to Oshodi Under Bridge. In 2021, I think around July, I was driving past Oshodi Under Bridge, and there was traffic. So a little kid walked up to my car window and was knocking and begging for money. For most of us that drive in Lagos, we've seen this a couple of times. I know sometimes you don't even want to maintain eye contact. You're just looking straight because you don't have money to give them. But even sometimes people even get violent and be like, get away from there, why are you staying in my car? And that happened, and I didn't have money to give as well. So I just maintained a straight face, and I just kept going, and the traffic cleared, and I moved. Then the following week, something else happened. I was driving to Ikorodu, and there was traffic around that kid too, and some thugs came up to my car with knives, and they were punching the window. They wanted to break it, that I should give them my phone and give them money. Thankfully, I'm sure a few people have experienced this in traffic. Thankfully, the traffic cleared. And it got me thinking when I got up that night that those children that we ignored while they were still kids, when they were begging for money, that thing that we did not give them while they were still begging, they will take it by force when they lose all of their innocence and they become the thugs and the area boys that we now complain endlessly about. And they go on to become tools in the hands of, bad politicians as well. And it got me thinking that at what point in that cycle do we lose that innocence of a child and it now transitions into a full-blown thug or area boy? And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I wanted to see the genesis of it. So I talked to my team about it. I told Bukola right here, Emmanuel, we told everyone, and we went to Oshodi Under Bridge. And if you're not familiar with Oshodi Under Bridge, it's one of the most dangerous ghettos, in Lagos. You don't want to be there at night. They've killed people, they've stabbed people, they've done all sort of terrible things. And I went there, and immediately I got there, the thugs there, they accosted me and they were like, what do you want? They wanted to take my phone. And I just said, see, I just want to talk to you guys. And at the very essence, they're the leaders of that community. But I wasn't there for them. We were there for the children amongst them so they don't grow up to become the area boys that we now complain about. And as soon as we got there, I started to talk to them. This is who I am. And I didn't tell them my intention. They said I should buy weed for them. I bought weed for them. And we sat down. And I asked them, what is your story? And they immediately became vulnerable just because I cared to listen. And I shared this earlier today in an earlier meeting I had, that if you know anyone's story, when you learn anyone's story, you can learn to love them. But from a distance, we may not know. But when you learn and listen to their stories, you can learn to love anyone. And I kept going back there. But I wasn't there for them, but they were the custodians of that place. We're there for the children. Then the next time I told them that, how about the children? I want to meet them. And they called the children, and I interacted with them. And the children were the ones carrying stuff for people in the market, smoking drugs on the railway, hanging around on the bridge. And they would also sleep there. There were so many of them, hundreds of them. And the following week, we came with chessboards. And we started teaching. So we wanted to start teaching them. And the area boys were like, you give us money. Like, we don't have money. But we can do something. And this is such an important thing in community engagement. We involve them as a part of the project. What did we do? The area boys that should typically disrupt the oppressions, we give them roles and responsibility. And we made T-shirts for them. Say, you, Sadiq, you'll be in charge of food. You, Sali, you'll be in charge of security. You, Dayo. And for the first time, they felt as part of something that was much bigger than them, right? Because it was for that community. And that was how we were able to stay in Oshodanda Bridge for almost a year without losing a single pencil. And we're able to help 50 children there find their place in the world again. And some of those kids now have gotten into tech. One of them is already like a really good web developer. Some of them are in school. Some of them got into vocational training. Mm-hmm. But if we had done it without involving the area boys who were the leaders, it would have never been possible. So involving them in a way that helps them feel as a part of what you're building is very integral to the success of any project.
Thank you. Please, let's give him a round of applause for that. Now, just following on from that, and also tying it back to our theme today, is on conquering the world. And just like you mentioned earlier, in conquering the world, you conquer the little things, which also means that you're pushing boundaries. You're, I guess, the next move, right? Can you share an instance where, personally, you've had to sort of take what you're teaching these children in your own life of pushing your own boundaries to advance your mission, whatever that may be?
Pushing boundaries. I think I wanted to say during the world record, but I think I should save it for maybe there's another question that would let me talk about that. But okay, maybe it was last year. Last year was one of the toughest years for me. And I wanted to give up. So last year, July, I had a surgery because I had lived with this pain, as a child for a long time in my hip. It was a case of a wrong injection by the nurse, and so it caused a condition called a vascular necrosis, where the tissue around the joint, it dries up because there's no blood supply to it. So what that meant was, when you get a bit older, you might just end up on a wheelchair, or scoliosis, or all of those things, or the hip joint collapses into the pelvis. The summary is you may end up on a wheelchair. So last year, so I've always lived with the pain for more than 20 years, but last year it was a lot worse. And I had just gotten back from London, and I decided to proceed with the surgery. Now, the surgery is what they advise people to do when they're in their 50s or 60s or 70s. Because when you do it once, you almost cannot do a revision surgery. right? And I was still, I was 28 last year, and it was a hard decision to make, but the surgeon had evaluated it and saw that it was really bad. So I said, okay, let's do the surgery. So the implant has a lifespan of 15 to 20 years. So even if I just have 15 to 20 years to be strong, I'll take it, and I'll use it to do all the things that I really want to do. And we had the surgery, and it was supposed to be like a 2-hour procedure, and it ended up being about like 7 hours. I went into cardiac arrest. I lost a lot of blood, and we're just on the verge of leaving. And I remember in the final moments, because I was on anesthesia, and I was slowly losing consciousness, and it just occurred to me that why did God always give the biggest burdens to people who set out to do great things? Why does there always have to be that thing, that one thing that they always have to contend with? And I was like, does God think I'm one of the strongest soldiers? Because if that's the case, I'm not doing it again. And I felt very defeated in that moment. And I lost consciousness. I woke up the next day. They said there was some complication. I would lose feeling from my leg down, and they don't know if I'll be able to walk again. And that really, really broke me, because there were a lot of incredible things I had set out to do in my life, and, the work with the kids and all of my dreams. I wanted to travel the world. I had not really done any of that. And it completely broke me. And from July till October, I couldn't walk. I was using this grandma walker and crutches and wheelchair. And whenever I needed to go to the restroom, I always had to call my mom to carry me, and it was the worst time of my life. And in that time, I've always been relatively famous before, this whole world record thing even happened. But it felt like the world had moved on. And I kind of gave up on myself and on the work as well. But I think the beautiful thing about the work that I do, and I tell the children all the time that, it takes a lot of courage to have faith in the things, in your own ideas, in the things that you believe very strongly in, right? And I know that I had to push through my own limitations, right? Because their own case, a lot of children we work with, is a lot worse than mine. So I have to still show up at my best for them. It was important. And I'd always told the kids this, that you show up at your best every single time. It doesn't matter where you are not a victim of that situation, right? You stand up, right, and you do what needs to be done, because you were not born into privilege. Other kids that were born into privilege, if they do 10 things, you have to do 100 things. If they do 100 things, you have to learn 1,000 things, right? And I think I kind of, I would always tell them that. And the kid that was staying with me, it reminded me that, that I had to try harder, and I had to fight for myself in some way, in his own words. And in that moment too, I had an understanding that I was here standing still, and the world it felt like the world had moved on. People were out there doing great things, and I was just at home, with my mom. I cannot walk. But someone told me something, and they said, now that you're here, it feels like you're standing still and the world has moved on. Someday you're going to move again, and the world will stand still for you. And it was such an important insight, because, the world will stand still, and I will stand again, to be there at my best for the children, because a lot of their lives and their success and their stories may be tied to me being able to, give that voice to their plight, to the things they need to become, to the opportunities they need to get. And I think that more than ever is what I've always taught the children, right? That it takes a lot of courage to pursue the things that set your soul on fire. So I started taking my physiotherapy more seriously, and, I'm moving again. Thank God.
Thank God. I mean, that's quite profound. Like, seeing you today, wouldn't have actually ever imagined. And still talking on pushing boundaries. I find that most times when you're working with the visionary of a particular vision, sometimes as a member of the team, you feel like you're working for a crazy person, because they come up with a lot of very crazy ideas. Now, we've talked about the children. Now, I'm very curious. I mean, I saw you earlier with some members of your team. I'm very curious about members of your team. How exactly do you keep them motivated in joining you to conquer the world? For some reason, what comes to mind is Pinky and the Brain, and I am not trying to give my age here. The cartoon of Pinky and the Brain, where Pinky goes, "Gee, what are we going to do today?" And Brain says, "The same thing we do every evening, take over the world." So how exactly are you able to keep your team, to motivate your team to join you on this journey of conquering the world through chess?
First of all, let's give it up for Bukola, Tosin, and Tyro, and Emmanuel, Samuel. You guys should wave now. Yeah. 3 of them are here, but it takes a village. I've always said this, that I'm just the fine face that just comes to tell the story. It takes a lot of moving parts, a lot of incredible people, that people do not see. I get to tell the stories, and it's such a privilege of a lifetime to be able to do that. But the people who do the very granular work of it are these people, the Chess and Slums team, the volunteers, and everyone that has continued to pour their heart and soul into this. We started Chess and Slums in 2018, and every person that we started together, we're still together. And it's been such a beautiful journey. And I remember, I've said a lot of crazy things, and I think that is the responsibility of every leader, right? That you're not spending too much of yourself in execution. You come up with a crazy idea, and you have the conviction, and the personality, and the wisdom to get your team to follow them. That is what it really means to be a leader, right? And I'm not a perfect leader in any capacity, but I think what I've learned, and a really important lesson, is understanding, this concept of missionaries and mercenaries. There was a mistake I made at the beginning of Chess and Slums, because when we started out, just like any other idea, nobody really understands it. But what makes an idea complete is when other people can find their place in it. It doesn't matter how grand that vision is. If there are no entry points for other people to be a part of it, then that idea is not complete yet. You cannot do it alone. So we started out, and I told a few people about it. And these people were not the most competent people, but they were equally passionate. They were the missionaries that were needed. The thing about missionaries is they're very passionate about your work, about the vision. They might not have the level of expertise and competence that you need to execute on a very high level, but they have a lot of heart, and that is important. On the flip side, you have the mercenaries. These are people that don't really care about the vision, but they're really skilled, highly skilled, and maybe they just care about what they get paid. And at the beginning, I had a lot of missionaries that started with us at Chess and Slums. And we were all very ignorant about a lot of things. I didn't even know what NGOs were. I was just a chess coach that wanted to use chess to change the world. And as I started to grow into what that role demanded, as I started to evolve into, before 2021, I had never stood in front of anybody to talk. It was my first time speaking in public in 2021. And I was working on myself, and I was doing all those things to become the leader that I needed to be. But I forgot about the team, right? That they also needed to grow. And I failed to really empower them, in a way that they could also lead and start to gain competence and skill at the level at which the organization and the vision was growing. And that caused a lot of difficulty, right? And the problem with that is when you don't let your missionaries grow, you start to look for mercenaries. And you get mercenaries, and they will do the job, but there's no heart and soul, and it crumbles. But the greatest lesson of leadership that I'm always proud of now is, and that is for every leader out here, that you're able to make your missionaries become mercenaries. And that is by empowering your missionaries as you grow and the organization grows, that the team also grows along with it. Like making Bukola now ahead of comms was one of the best leadership decisions that I made. Because when we started, we both didn't know anything about what that role demanded. And now I'm so proud of her. Let's give it up for her once again. She has grown into it. And I can say that not only is she a missionary of Chess and Slums, but she's also a mercenary that is killing it. So I have an amazing team, and I'm also learning, to understand that, beyond any one person, any one idea, execution is as good as the weakest person on your team. And it's something we're still constantly evolving into, but kudos to them for embracing all my crazy ideas.
Speaking of crazy ideas, let's talk about this Guinness World Book Records. How did they take it? And I think we should start with what was it that made you feel like, you know what, I'm going to do this? Why the choice of location in attempting to do it? And how did your team take it when you told them, oh, guys, I'm actually going to do this?
It was insane because I was supposed to leave the US April 10th, but I just woke up in the middle of the night and I walked to Times Square. And the thing about Times Square is such a beautiful place, especially at night, with all of the lights and all of the people. And it's the kind of place that gives you the feeling that you can do anything in the world. That is why I'm such an advocate of exposure, even over education. Exposure is so important. Just seeing things and places and experiencing it for yourself. Don't ever accept a single story about any place or any people. Go see it for yourself. And just being there with all of the lights, I just had like a moment of epiphany that we can do something truly phenomenal here. And I told my friend Ross, let's break the world record here in Times Square with all of this code, with all of this lights. And he was like, this is crazy, but let's do it. Then I remember calling Taiwo in the middle of the night. That Taiwo, I just canceled my flight to Nigeria. I think I want to extend a bit more. We want to break the world record. And we have like 10 days to plan this. And it was like, 10 days, that's not even possible because for the world record team, you need at least 12 weeks of notice and all of that. Then Times Square, you have to pay like $50,000 to use Times Square for a few hours, not to talk of 3 days. So I said, we're going to do it, right? And I said this, that our will was greater than any resistance we're going to face. And I think if more people understand the power they have to bend the world to their will, I think we're going to do so much more, right? We know that we have the power to change things that are seemingly impossible, just by asking, just by showing up, just by doing. So the first thing was we sent a mail to the Guinness World Record team. We know it's 12 weeks, but can you please do this for us in 2 days? And they did it for us in 2 days. They expedited the application process. Apparently, my friend knew the CEO in London and sent him another mail, and they expedited it, and we did it in 2 days. So the next thing was the Times Square Alliance. To do anything in Times Square, you have to get permission at Times Square Alliance. They went to Times Square Alliance, and the moment we walked into the place, we didn't know anyone there. There was a woman there that was a top executive. She was like, oh, I follow you on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, thank God. My name is Tunde Okoya. This is what I'm trying to do. And she was like, no, it's not possible. Like 3 days, like celebrities have to like pay thousands of dollars to use it for a few hours. We're like, this is why we want to do it. And the why was more important than how we were going to do it. And she said, okay, but she can't make any promises. So we just went back, almost defeated, but we just continued planning, hoping they would say yes. Then we just got a call the next day that, okay, you guys can use it from 17th to this thing. But then we had this United Nations thing on the 16th, but we're like, we'll do it. So we did it 2 days before. So I just posted it on my social media, and it was already getting some traction. So 2 days before the attempt, I felt sick. I had a cold, and I was nose bleeding, and, I wanted to cancel it. Right, but I just said maybe I'll feel better. So on that morning, I was still nose bleeding and I was sneezing, but I just dressed up and I walked to Times Square. I wanted to tell us that, you know what, let's just postpone it. I don't feel well and I can definitely not do 60 hours. But as soon as I got to Times Square, the first thing I saw Nigerians with flag, flower. So like, I came all the way from London. I came all the way from Tennessee. Oh, I brought my child. I'm like, whoa, what's happening?
The sickness disappeared, Abby.
I just didn't say anything. I just went to sit down at the table, and we did it. Yeah.
It's really good, it's really good. And then while you were going through that, how were you able, was there any point where you felt like, what am I doing? Why should I just stand up now?
Yeah, they were. So I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't take dairy, product. So they said drink coffee so you stay awake. So they bought coffee for me and some other players. But I don't know how they switched it. So I took the one with milk.
As village people.
And I just had straight food poisoning. I was throwing up for the next 36 hours. So I couldn't eat anything for the first 2 days. And, a doctor came, I was vomiting, and they advised me to stop. I had used almost 20 tablets, but it didn't stop. And we had 5-minute break for every 1 hour. So I always had to rush to the toilet, come back, and I was throwing up, and I was still sneezing blood, and I wanted to stop. But I remember there was a moment where I just looked up in the middle of the night, and God bless this guy. His name is Omolomo. He was there. He was doing the Instagram live. The gong, everybody was there. Nobody was going on. In the middle of the night in Times Square, it was freezing cold, right? And it made me just understand that this wasn't just about me anymore. And it was about something that was much bigger than me. I mean, more importantly, the children, because we're doing it to raise money so we can support more children to school, right? So if I give up at this point, I'll be letting down so many people. Because when I ever made the announcement, there was a prayer group. I said they will be doing 60 hours prayer alongside marathon. So it's like, how can you just give up? And I think there's such a beautiful lesson here about hitching your wagon to something that is much bigger than you, right? And if it were left to me, the stakes were really low, I would just give up and everybody would go and sleep. But I was there representing 200 million Nigerians that needed something new to believe in. I needed hope in a way that, we could really converge around something that belongs to us. And it was a true moment for all of us. And I could not be selfish. And it's the beauty of suffering and success. There's no suffering without success. If you suffer and you probably don't enjoy any success, someone else will benefit from that suffering. And if they enjoy some success without suffering, it is because someone else paid that price for suffering for the success you're enjoying. So they're very much intertwined. And, I'm not one to refuse suffering because I know that, they're very intertwined. And without suffering, there's no success. Also, without success, there's no suffering. So I wanted to give up, but we just kept going because it was a moment for all of us.
Oh, thank you so much. So we're going to start taking questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, please, now will be a good time to raise your hand, put your hand up, and I believe that there is someone that's walking around with a microphone. So, while we're, waiting for people to, put their questions together, you're talking about suffering and you were talking about success. And it has me thinking, how exactly do you measure success through your initiatives?
There's only one clear metric for success. And this is something that has always been personal. So that is why when people say, oh, this, or everyone knows you, I'm like, that's great, but we've been successful from day one. And because the only metric that validates success, it's in the lives of the children, being able to take them from 0 to 1. The fact that we're doing analysis together in a class, and Levinus used the word prophylaxis. I'm like, how do you know what prophylaxis is? You, this village boy.
And it's not
the uncle, because he said it. So what does it mean? He said it's a preventive measure against it. And that success that you're able to take them from 0 to 1. That you're able to give them that gift of agency, that they can begin to learn to think for themselves, right? I think that is what Africa needs. Right, and I like to think of the broader picture, the bigger perspective, how our work is important to build the kind of prosperity that Africa needs. And it's raising stronger children. It's raising curious children. It's raising a new generation of intellectuals the ones that won't just complain about everything, but challenge the status quo. And this is what I'm doing in my own capacity with the team, that we're using the gifts that we have, to help them, become people that can be useful to society. Because if we don't do that, poverty will give them another script entirely. And that's where they will get into internet scam. They will do anything else. So I guess success for us has always been defined by how far we can take the kids, not just in the knowledge of chess, because chess is just the vehicle. It's not the end in itself. It's a means to several ends: education, mentorship, technology. Right? We can take them from this point where they can have access to education, to technological opportunities, and to mentorship opportunities. So that's how we measure like the impacts of what we do through the lives of the children that we work with. And it's not a game of numbers; it's an end-to-end thing.
Thank you. And yes, so there's someone here. If you don't mind introducing, and then you can ask your question.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Dipo Adebajo. Thank you, Tunde. Truly very inspiring. First off, I would say, because of you, I called my daughter to join the chess club after you won, the world championship. Talking about suffering, I know we see the glamour, we don't see the pain. I'd like to know, you deciding you wanted to be the best, what's your routine in gaining this mastery of being the best? Maybe you want to share with us. And secondly, for me, is like Usain Bolt would say, winning is easy, but staying as the winner is the most difficult. Are there pressures you are battling with right now to keep up with, this achievement that you've had? Thank you.
Okay, all right. Are we taking the questions together, or can I just treat them? Okay. So, thank you so much, and please extend my love to your daughter as well. Chess is good for her. And not in the way that you think about it. The cognitive benefits are good in a strategy, but more importantly, she would always be able to travel anywhere in the world and find a community. Because chess is a universal game. So it's a language she would be able to communicate wherever she goes. So please encourage her to play. I'm not the best. I'm far from being the best, honestly. And I haven't played chess seriously in almost 8 years, because I kind of like gave up my own dream to pursue this, through other children. And this year was the year I only started playing chess again. After almost 8 year hiatus. The first one was in Germany. There was a video that went viral while I was playing against 10 people. And that was kind of like, then this. So I'm not the best, really. I'm far from being the best. But one thing I know is you don't really have to be the best to stand out. And this is so important because, everyone feels defeated by the idea that if I can't be the best at this thing, or you've seen other people do it so well, then, your own efforts do not count, or they do not matter. That is not true. That is not true at all. In fact, that's one of the most harmful mindset that anyone could ever have. That the things that I do not matter because someone does it better. So the best advice I would always give young people is these two things. The things that you do matter to the world. And you must treat it as such. You must never take anything you do for granted. No matter what level at which you do it, right? You must never ever take it for granted. You must always show up for the things you can do, and you must always give room to express it wherever you find yourself. I am not the best. Maybe one of the best, but I'm not the best. But one thing I know is that I show up consistently. That consistency, it matters over intensity. You can go intense and do something immediately, but when you just pace it over time, it is so much more meaningful, so much more. For people that want to get into chess, I'll tell you this. You don't really have to aim to be the best. You need to define it in a way that speaks to you. So chess can be many things, right? It can be, for some, it's a competitive sport. They travel the world, they play against masters and all of those things. They do that. For some others, for me, it's a social integration tool for the children that we work with. to help them forge their own intellectual identity. Chess is being used in education as a way to improve learning outcomes. For some people in the hospital, old people, they use it as a way to help them deal with Alzheimer's. And for some others, it's just your friend that you want to bond with or you want to banter, right? So chess doesn't really always have to be competitive. It can't just be beautiful. But when you, like, there's a billionaire that uses chess analogies to teach business strategy in Stanford. Peter Thiel is a master as well. But when you really find what it means to you and how it can become a philosophy for your own life, you stay with that, you define it, and you run with it. I've chosen my own path. Nobody would care about the world record if it was just about me. But it was more about the cause, that we're using it as a way to like bring awareness to this cause and eventually help the children get more support. And when we led with that, you know, it started to gain a lot of traction. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, yes, one more question.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Tunde, for this wonderful session. Okay, my name is Bofa Mene. My question, I'm going to read it out because I wrote it very carefully. So in April, when you set the record for the longest chess marathon in Times Square, my niece said that you reminded her of the Queen's Gambit, which she believes to be a true life story, but is not. And what we can infer from our reaction is that stories matter, how they're told matter, and who tells them also matters. So my question is, are you very particular about having your story told through certain artistic expressions, maybe film, music? And if you are particular, would you like your story, do you prefer that your story is told by storytellers that are indigenous to the continent? Would you like it to be told from home? Is that something that matters to you?
But my story isn't complete yet. You know, when I was in Germany, I had a camera crew follow me around the entire 1 week that I was in Germany. And they were just documenting everything from my speech to the tournaments to everything. And they were like, we're putting it together, we can sell it to Netflix, And I think one of the most beautiful things I've done in my life is to learn how to write. Learn how to tell my own story. And for those that have probably followed us for the last 4 years, you see that all the stories have been entirely told by the people who did it. There was no CNN coming to tell our story. It was like we told the story, then CNN just lifted what we wrote and put it on their page. And I used to share a lot on Twitter. Maybe these days not so much, but our stories were entirely written by us. And I've had a lot of like proposals from books to film, you know. In fact, at some point, everyone has been drawing some artwork. I have like almost like 20 pieces in my house now, something that just tries to capture the essence of who I am. And I really appreciate it. And I'm even flattered by it, but I don't think the story is complete yet. I don't know if it will ever be complete, you know. I think I'm still quite young, I'm still Gen Z, you know, but I think there's so much more to tell. And I don't want to tell the story twice. So I'm still taking my time, but I'm open to just listen to, you know, whatever expression of it that a creative person has, right? But I just personally don't think the story is complete yet. But more importantly, a more important story worth telling is that of the kids. And maybe at the intersection of their own lives and mine, that we can have a more beautiful story to tell. I'll be open to listening to that.
Okay, good evening. My name is Mary Jane. I want to commend you on your bravery, your hard work, and your journey towards fulfilling purpose by projecting talents in almost overlooked communities. For years, I've been encouraging lots of people to live a life of purpose, and, you know, recently God gave me an idea to catch them young, right? So, and the idea was to go to secondary schools, to talk to kids, you know, to help them to ensure that they do not make life-altering decisions. And I feel like that's something you're already doing. And in a way, I kind of self-detonated some time back But coming here today, I've seen a lot of people who do this because they have ulterior motives. But I hear the passion in, the way you speak and all of that. So for someone like me, my question to you would be, what fueled your passion? One, how did you fund your passion and get support? Were you ever tempted to give up? How did you come up with a team? Were there always these people around you? And are there opportunities for people who want to volunteer or learn a thing or two from you? Thank you.
That's like 5 questions in one. It's a full strategy
I had
session.
to use my
It's a
opportunity.
full strategy session that you've just asked.
All right, I'll start with the last one. On volunteering, just talk to Bukola. Anyone that wants to volunteer, just talk to Bukola, the lady with the cap, afterwards.
Bukola, please
Although
wave so that they can
the
see.
volunteer thing is a bit tricky because, we can't take too many people at once. I think, a lot of people want to help, but with every added person, it just adds another layer of complexity to our operations. And because we work with children, we always have to be very careful. So there's a very strong, long vetting process. But please talk to Bukola today. I'm making an exception today. And we'll find a way to make it work. How do you get support? And thank you and well done for what you do, because it takes a lot of courage to give yourself out like that. And you're special because of this. Don't ever forget that. You're doing something that a lot of people will never be able to do. I promise you. I met a woman recently. She's like in her 50s. And you know what she told me? She said, my mom loves you. So her mom should be maybe in her 70s or 80s. And I get that a lot of times. What I found, because I try to understand why are people so drawn to the work that we do in this way? It's because they get to live vicariously through you. Because most of them never really had the courage to live above themselves. So when they see other people do it, they want to support, or they want to identify with that. And that's such an important thing, that you do something with so much kindness and grace that you extend yourself to other people. But it also comes with a lot of hardship. Your best strategy is storytelling. People do not care what you do. They care about why you do it. There's an important distinction between what you do. If I tell you what we do at Chess and Slums, it will sound boring. We're using chess as a tool to help enhance cognitive thinking for kids, and the real impact is in the synapses. That really is the real impact, to help enhance the synapses and improve learning outcomes. But nobody cares about that. Maybe because they don't understand it, or they don't really, because it doesn't tell a story. But when you say it like this, that we're using chess as a tool to help these children become and see their own potential or find their place in the world, you've told a story that can resonate with another person. Because one thing we all crave for is that sense of belonging to some place, to somewhere. And we see thousands of children that will never get the opportunity to belong somewhere because of where they're born or the parents they're born to. And that gives new perspective that can resonate with people. So if you want to connect with people, because you have the vision, but if you want to change the world or change something, someone else has to pay for it, right? And it took us a long time, to get to that level of, resonance where people could now believe in a vision enough to donate to it or enough to want to partner with us, right? But it takes time. So let that time pass, because, and I've said this a couple of times, that there are decades when nothing happens. And that is your time to build, to put your foot on the ground and have proof of the work you're doing. It would always come in handy, because it's easier to say, please help me, I am already doing this, than to say, please help me, I want to do this, right? And there are weeks when decades happen. And those weeks when decades happen, it feels like, too much is happening at the same time. Right? But then you'll be ready for it, because in the decades when nothing happened, and nobody was watching, you did the work. So lead with the work, with your heart, continue to do it. You would have to make a lot of personal sacrifices, but embrace it. Charity has to be synonymous with sacrifice. You cannot separate it. Do it. Identify all the funding opportunities that exist in the ecosystem of what you do. The educational institutions, the corporate partners. Most companies have a CSR budget. Send a mail to them. You'll be surprised how much you can get by just asking, Remember, you're not asking for money for yourself. You're asking for a vision that you have to do something that is hard that other people don't have the courage to do. So separate your ask. You're not asking for yourself. You're asking for the cause. I struggle with that as well. And of course, I wanted to give up so many times. But when you have a team of missionaries, remember, not mercenaries. Don't start with mercenaries because somebody is good at something. You want them to join your team. No. Mercenaries don't matter at the beginning. So find people that have the heart like you do, even if they don't know anything. But ensure that they can grow to become mercenaries. That is how you build a strong team, and it makes the journey even more beautiful.
Just on the lookout, okay. This young man. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Tunde.
Good afternoon.
So when you were talking, I could draw a number of similarities between your story and mine. I also grew up in Ikorodu. I was also given an injection that affected me health-wise, and I also once broke my leg. So I was like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of similarities, but then you have gone from not being able to afford school fees to being a world record holder for the longest chess marathon. So my question for you is, having achieved all this in under 30 years, what is next for Tunde Onokoya? Thank you.
Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
can we take the next question, if you don't mind,
Okay,
so that
okay.
we can...
Okay, can you hear me? So I'm going to read a quote from Steve Harvey. He said, if you don't separate yourself from distractions, your distraction will separate you from your goals. And we know for people of our race, getting to the top is very relatively easy. Staying there is where the problem comes from. 3 years, 4, 5 years ago, you know how your day will run. But today, Sterling Leadership Series, you had a meeting. So how are you coping, managing your newfound fame? Because this is where the real problem lies. This is where the grit, the resilience comes from. If you have nothing, you fear nothing. But if you have something, you want to stay there. So it might be important lessons to share. How you intend to stay focused. There's distractions, and you know what I'm talking about, left to right. Thank you.
I do.
So two questions.
That's
I
a
had
really
a
good
question that was
question.
similar to his question, but it's
Okay.
okay. So two questions. What's the next big thing, and how do you cope with distractions?
And thank you so much, my brother. What's your name again? The brother that asked the first question, Victor. So nice to meet you, and thank you for sharing a bit of your story. So we're kindred spirits then. Maybe we should talk afterwards. There's no big thing, and this is the truth. I'm not going to go off to do any big thing. After the world record, I was in Morocco for a conference, and I met people at the airport. They were like, "Oh, are you here to play chess again?" I said, "No." So, and I say this with all honesty, no more big things for me. I think now I want to go back to doing the little things that I've always done for the last 7 years. And because it's such a trap to continue to chase the highs. And life is such an interesting balance of highs and lows. It is what makes it, is what gives it life. It's like that thing with that life machine at the hospital. It goes this, up, down, up. But the moment it flat lines, it means the person is dead. So life is such a beautiful balance of highs. Extreme highs, like you can imagine how I felt in Times Square when we hit the 60th hour. Times Square was completely shut down. Nobody could move. The place was crowded with hundreds of people that came to see me. And that felt good. People traveled from Lagos and London. It was such a great high for me. And I loved it, I won't lie. I never expected that it would become something that big. But then the debilitating lows come. And you're just in your ass and you're like, you know, nobody cares who you are. You just have to do your regular stuff, wash your plates. And your mom is like, world record, call.
Go and wash plates.
And that's what makes life beautiful, that you're able to embrace both chapters. It has much grace and strength of character. So I'm not going to keep going off to chase all the highs or let's go, let's do this. No. I'm going to go back to doing the little things because that is how to truly conquer the world. The world only seems conquered when you are out there, but the real work of conquering is in the little things that you do every day. And those little things is being in Makoko with the kids to teach them chess, going to the Smarten house to talk to the teenagers, running my day-to-day meetings to make sure chess and slums get the support that we need to continue funding, telling the right stories, putting the spotlight on the right people. I don't know if you saw, I played a match with this 12-year-old prodigy recently, Deborah, and just because I posted a video of us playing chess, somebody is sponsoring her to America next year. We're able to raise 30 million naira for her, just because I posted a video of both of us playing chess. And I think it's the understanding the power that I have now, right, and a platform. And I'm going to track it back, to the second question. Fame is hard. But the thing is, anyone can be famous, really. You can be famous for twerking on Instagram. You're just a familiar face. But I think what I have isn't that kind of fame. I think it's influence. And influence is much more powerful, because people care very deeply about what you have to say and the things that you do. But it also comes a lot of distraction. People are going to want to use you. And my friend would always say, use me, but don't misuse me. And that's okay. And I've learned to embrace that. Some people just want you to come, so they'll take pictures, and it's a distraction. And listen, distraction is easy when it's good and bad. You know that. Okay, it's good. I won't choose bad. But when it becomes complex is when distraction is good. I still have to choose to say no. Recently, I rejected an offer that would have made me life-changing money to be brand ambassador for a company that I shouldn't be brand ambassador for. Anyone else can be. They would have paid me a lot of money. And Taiwo and I struggled with saying no to this because it's life-changing money that can maybe retire for a bit.
That kind of money.
Yeah, that kind of money. So you can imagine just the kind of company that it is. But I said no to it because it doesn't align with my values. And now, as much as I hate to be put on a pedestal, a lot of young people and children believe that, Chessman, inspires me. And I have a responsibility to that. So I think I've always been a grounded person for the most part, but it's still hard, right? Now, everyone kind of wants something from you, and it's really hard. But the best way to deal with it, and for anyone here, because at some point, my 15 seconds of fame will fade and people will move on and I'll go back to my regular life. If you ever get a time in the spotlight, you ever get a moment in your life where the spotlight is on you and everyone is talking about you and everyone is doing this and that, remember that spotlight is not for you. That spotlight is for you to bring other people into it. That is the only way to wield fame and influence. That is the distinction between being famous and having influence. That you know that this thing that you have should not serve just you, but you bring as many people into it as possible. And that is how I've come to understand it. And that is how I'm learning to navigate it, by spotlighting the things that are important to the work, to the world, to the people, and making sure that the world sees them as well. So that's it. It's still hard, but I'm learning.
Thank you very much. We have someone over here, and then I have another. Okay, so over to you, sir. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Good afternoon, or good evening all.
Good evening.
I'm Salisu. I pick much interest on this conversation, especially when you made mention of how you try to empower the people in Makoko, which is a fishing community or marine community. And this singular effort of you to empower this community, I look at it as a great vision, which is a global, because the main thing there is to eradicate poverty. And I'm trying to link it up with another global vision, which is SDG 14, that talks about life below water. Because I'm someone that my activities revolve around marine sector. And in that sector, I can say that we are now in a transition. We are transiting to what is known as blue economy. And that blue economy is about, bettering the life of marine community, marine ecosystem. And I don't know, is there anything you are doing in that aspect or to foster any kind of, partnership to help in conserving the marine ecosystem, the marine community, so as to meet up with that global vision of SDG 14? I don't know.
All right. I won't lie to you. I don't really know enough to speak on it or be an authority, but within the context of the work we've done in Makoko, which is the riverine community, I think the thing with Makoko is it's a very interesting conundrum, because if you decide to clean the water, take the people out of there, clean the water, and make it like the Venice of Africa that they like to call it, it's just simple gentrification. The poor people will never be able to live there anymore. It becomes a tourist attraction, really, for real this time, not the billboard of poverty that it represents right now, right? But, rich people are going to live there. The moment the water has become clear and it becomes, habitable. But then, if you decide to leave them there, it's a very terrible place, right? And the livelihood of the people is tied to being on that water. They've been around for over 100 years. So to me, I think it's such a hard thing, and I don't want to start delving into solving problems that do not align with the mission for Chess and Slums. So we're sticking to just educating the children. Because when you educate the kids, right, they have their own agency. If one of them becomes the leader or becomes the president of the country, that place will never be like that again. Because when you empower children from the slums, you are empowering a family, you're empowering a community, because they would always have a sense of duty back to their own people. And it's the only reason why I'm able to do what I do, because I also grew up from nothing. So I have a sense of duty to people that live like me, that look like me, that have the same experiences. That is why Africa must be built by Africans. Nobody's coming to save us. The leaders that must lead must emerge from the same communities that they must serve. So as far as that goes, we'll just keep empowering the children. That is our focal point. And hopefully, in some way, they will come back and they would, make the water clearer and do all of those things you mentioned. But chess for us and empowering the children is our focal point for now.
All right, Don Flexi here. I just want to say congratulations one more time. Easy, to get into the Guinness World Book of Records. God bless you for that feat and many more to come. From a TV perspective, I would say I used to see chess the way I see spoken word up until three years ago when we had IB Quick on the Niger Spirit Talent Hunt. And that was when I knew, oh wow, I can literally sit in a room and enjoy spoken word poetry. I thought it was just about words, intellectual and all that. So my question would be, is there a way we can have chess, in that kind of space, in an entertainment space?
I'm sure Taiwo will be smiling right now. Because that's everything we've been talking about recently, how to infuse chess into popular culture. I also love spoken words, and I'm not a poet, but I write sometimes. And I think it's something I share in common with Oga Abubakar. I'm not sure if he's here. Okay, all right. Yeah, shout out to him. Sometimes he shares the poems that he writes with me as well. And the one that I write sometimes, we share it. But chess in popular culture, entertainment, of course, when Queen's Gambit happened, by the way, it was the most viewed Netflix series of all time. And it kind of like completely changed people's perception of chess from a distance. You see the lady, Beth Hammond, she was so stylish, everything, the ambience, it made chess cool again. Beautiful women can play chess. It's not just for the nerds that are wearing glasses, right? So I think it's one of the things that we're also trying to do on the side, like outside chess and slums, to get chess into more spaces. Like I said, chess doesn't always have to be competitive. It can just be beautiful. If you put a beautiful chess set on this table now, it kind of like accentuates the features. It makes it look a bit different. So it's good in spaces, even for the aesthetic benefit. Or, you could have it as, I did like some spoken word thing at Victoria's album launch using chess analogies. And even when I write in a deeply poetic way. So people, can kind of like live through those experiences as well. So we're coming up with a couple of things. When I was in Atlanta, I did this chess and wine thing. But it's only women that came. but that was fun. So we're thinking we could do that in every city in the world. So we're going to do a lot of that. Just stay tuned there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Samuel Idowu. Thank you so much, Sunday. Your quote says, doing big things from a small place. Thank you for validating that with your life. My question is, how did you or are dealing with public scrutiny? Most of us are either consciously or unconsciously neglecting our call or purpose or sticking to comfort zone because of public scrutiny. For example, you make a post and you don't get a traction in 1 hour, you go delete it, right? Another example, when you broke the record, I think you were attending to the media guys, and your hand was going to your nose, and people were making comment, why was he even doing that, right? But then you explained today what transpired or what happened in the process, right? Do comments like that...
Say, was he using cocaine?
So how do you deal with public scrutiny? Some of us, one comment like this, we disappear totally for 1 month. Right?
Thank you for that question, because I think it's an important one. Because sometime, maybe last year, they dragged me on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know what I said. I said we should rehabilitate children that are doing Yahoo so we don't lose them. Oh my goodness. It was a very long day. But the beautiful thing, that single post, it helped us raise about, I think, 15 million that we used to set up the homeless shelter that we have now in Ikorodu. But they dragged me, so I was the Jesus Christ of the idea, So, public scrutiny is hard. And it's not easy to deal with, right? Because at the end of the day, we are human and we care about what other people think about us. It doesn't matter how much you say, oh, I don't care, I don't this. We actually care, right? And because we're not designed to have so many opinions just thrown at us like that. Like, you're not even designed to have 1 million people follow you. Like, how can why should 1 million people be able to see your life? How does that even make sense? Why should you be interacting with 5,000 people? Why should 10,000 people have something to say about what you think? It's a lot, but it's the way social media has kind of like amplified voices and made the world much smaller. So first, you have to embrace it. Embrace the new world order. The new world order says you have to find your place in all of this chaos. And dealing with chaos, shout out to Taiwo that helps me deal with all this chaos. And people are going to have something to say. That's the thing. But you know what helps me, right? And one of the most beautiful songs is by Emily Sunday. It says, read all about it. It says, you have the voice to change a nation, but you are afraid you'd say something wrong, right? Silence, because of scrutiny, is the worst thing that can ever happen to you. that you choose silence because you're afraid of being criticized, you're afraid of being judged. And it's very simple. What helps me is knowing that every time I speak on behalf of the thousands of children, even the ones that I haven't met yet, whose voice will never be heard. So I'm standing in that gap for them. So what you're doing, whatever it is, whether you're building a business, you're standing in the gap for the solution you're building or the problem you're solving and the people that it will be impacted by. That is a greater cause than anyone's opinion. See, what I said earlier, hitch your wagon on something that is much bigger than yourself, than your fears. You need to have courage. You don't need to be the best. See, I would rather be, what's that word now? I would rather be bad at something and have a lot of audacity than be extremely talented and be afraid. See, the world is run, and I say this because I've traveled the world quite a bit this year, and I tell you, I've been in rooms with world leaders, rooms that I didn't even know existed. But guess what? The people in these rooms are not the smartest people. I swear to you, I promise you. They're not the most articulate, but they are the most courageous. The ones that have the courage to put themselves out there. The ones that have the courage to impress their ideas on the world, regardless of what anyone thinks about it. Courage is the single most important factor that will decide your life. I promise you. The courage to go against the grain. And when you see the comments, you just laugh and you move on to the next thing. So many people have said a lot of things. There was a time, there's a group on Naraland that said, the Oshodi boys, that we went to plant the kids there, that those boys are not street kids. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Like, we went to plant children from rich homes, we put them under the bridge and we taught them chess. That was how they were able to learn it. Like, you can see how ridiculous that is. But that is how far people will go to discredit what you have to do or what you're doing because they're afraid. And because they're afraid of the things they cannot do, the only way to feel better about themselves is to bring you down. And I think when you have this understanding, it'll help you build up the walls that you need, right? Don't believe anyone's opinion really matters. It doesn't. It's just a passing comment. They've moved on to the next thing that is trending, right? But if you spend too much dwelling on it, it's going to keep you waiting. And see, if you post something, and that's why I love my Instagram page. If you go and see my old post, you see posts with just 2 likes. It's me that liked it, and maybe my girlfriend at the time. And all of it is still there. But I didn't care anyway because I did it for the love of it. So love what you do very deeply, enough to do it without the applause, right? Because when the criticism comes, it's still a very lonely journey, right? When all of the criticism and even the applause fades out, it's still just you on your journey going every day. So embrace that and just do it with a lot of courage. I promise you, your life will be completely better for it.
Thank you so much. So you said something that which has sort of put a light bulb moment for me. And in general, we know that chess requires a lot of strategic thinking and being like several moves ahead. And I must commend that you are very, so many years beyond your years, way ahead beyond your years. And just listening to you, listening to such wisdom, it's quite commendable. Now, bringing it back to decision making, especially in everyday life, how has being a strategic thinker helped you in your love life? He wasn't expecting that.
Manager, can I answer this question? Or do I plead the fifth? Ha. Is this being recorded? Okay. Oh, God.
So we have one question. Maybe you're looking at Bukola, head of comms, just trying to figure out how do we answer this question.
No, chess is not like love. I wish love was as easy as chess. Chess is hard, but, love is much harder. Do you know why? Because I think love, you have to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is such a hard thing for people that like to be very present in their own minds and be in control. I think one of the greatest lessons chess has ever taught me is the value of like delayed gratification, right? And the value of like focused thought, right? But you see, love is a risk. And it's such a hard risk to get to know anyone so deeply. It's such a hard risk to get to like leave part of yourself open, for people to like hurt you, it's always really hard, right? And, playing chess will not help you become a better lover. Maybe to help you learn how to protect your queen better. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for being such a great sport. I have time for one last question from the audience. One last question.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Edem. Quite an interesting conversation. I would rather be here than anywhere else. So your quote, one of the quotes says, the why is more important than how the job is done. So my question would be, you spoke about your story with so much passion. So how were you able to sell your passion, your vision, your dreams to your missionaries? Thank you.
I think maybe Bukola should be the one to answer this question. Like, why did you believe me? Yeah. I think you should give out the microphone to answer why she believed me in 2018.
Wow. Sunday, I've done it again. But all right. Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here. So I remember when I came across Chess in Slums for the first time, it was through the status update of a friend. That's Corey, a childhood friend of Tunde. So yeah, I just posted on his WhatsApp, we're about to start something interesting with chess. If you're interested, just message me, we'll add you to a group chat. And this was at the time I had just seen the movie Queen of Cartway. So if you have seen Queen of Cartway, you already have an idea of what chess can do for a child. So I didn't know how to play chess. I just finished secondary school then, waiting for admission, but I knew this is something I wanted to be a part of. And then we were all added to a group chat, and Tunde, I was calling him Mr. Tunde Onokoye at that time. He kept telling me, just call me Tunde. In my mind, I'm like, I'm seeing you the same way I was seeing the coach in Queen of Cartway. I can't be calling you Tunde. So in his mind, he thought I was calling him Tunde. But anytime we were chatting, in my mind, I'm putting the Mr. Tunde Onokoye there. So for real, for me, just watching that movie already gave me like an idea of what Tunde was trying to do. And that was what just made me believe in it from the very beginning. It was easy because I had that image in mind. I don't know if you saw, because I didn't know how to play chess. I never encountered chess. I didn't start playing chess until probably 2 years ago, because I just used to pick up anytime we're having training with the children, and I'll be in the classes with the chess coaches, and as they're teaching, I'm also a student for the day. So back then, it was just Queen of Cartway that did it for me, honestly. And, Tunde himself is someone, listening to him, you can already buy into the idea and dream. He's such a great talker. And that's why anytime he comes with his crazy ideas, it's very easy to buy us over. Because when he starts talking like this, you have forgotten all your complaints, and Tunde, there's no time. Oh, Tunde, that's true. How can we do this? So for me, it was Queen of Cartway that really opened my eyes. And then hearing Tunde speak just sealed the deal. So.
Thank you so much. Now they've seen me finish now, so just to add, perspective to your question, how do you convince missionaries? It's the most important thing you'd ever get to do. That you have a beautiful idea and you find beautiful people to pursue it with, right? The first thing is to be very honest, right? Be very honest with who you are and what you want to do. There's this trap of trying to, portray something in a way that it isn't. You are really at the beginning. So be very clear about where you are and where you want to go. I think people see that, people see the integrity of what you're trying to shine through the way you talk about it and the level of honesty in which you're able to express it. And that honesty comes from a place of vulnerability. You have to be very vulnerable to your teammates. They're not the ones that you do, I'm a leader to. No. That's for the outside world and you look all cool and calm. But I can tell you, your vulnerability will make people follow you. They'll follow you to hell if they need to. I promise. That's it.
Thank you so much. And one last question from me as we round off for the evening. What's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, knowing what you know now? I know he's still young. Yeah, I'm being told that you're still young, but let's put an age to it. What's one piece of advice you would give to the boy in Ikorodu?
To be fair, I won't really say I'm young because I've had more experiences than most typical 29-year-olds. And honestly, that's just the truth. There's no way in the world. I've had to grow up really early, and I mean that's that. What would I tell Tunde back in Ikorodu? And maybe this is also a message to every young person. I think I wasted a lot of time, even though I started really young. I wasted a lot of time being the victim. I don't know if this resonates with anyone. Maybe you don't even come from a disadvantaged background in any way, but for the longest time, you've always felt as a victim of a situation that wasn't your fault. And you've always blamed something and someone for it. For me, it was where I came from. And I wish I had known this earlier. If I could go back and maybe talk to my 18-year-old self, this is what I would have told Tunde then. That don't be a victim. Participate in your own life. And I was a really smart kid in secondary school, top of class, aced my jam, WAEC, and everything was clear. I was the first child of my parents. I'm going to Unilag to study medicine. In our house, it's either you're a doctor or a failure. There's no in between. There's no content. No. There's just two of us, me and my younger brother. I'm the first child. My parents are not educated. The entire responsibility of saving the family of poverty was on my shoulder. So my path was already defined. But guess what? I wrote Unilag exam. I had 70. And the cutoff mark for medicine and surgery in 2011 was 71. That was a merit. Then my catchment was 69 for Ogun State. I still didn't get in. And that was how I lost an opportunity to go and study medicine, because I had read Gifted Hands, and I was like, doctor. In fact, that book has probably ruined more lives than it has changed. This is a theory, but don't tell anyone. And that is why it's so important to expose kids to a lot of books. Gifted Hands was the only book most of us read, and it inspired us to want to be one thing. But there were other books to be other things. If I had read Chimamanda, I would have wanted to be a writer. So that place of influence for a young person, we must never take it for granted. Even if you're just having a conversation with a young person, you have the chance to imprint values that will stay with them forever. And it didn't work out. Then I wrote for LASU, Lagos State. And I got in for medicine, and that year, the government increased school fees from 25,000 to 250,000. I don't know if anyone remembers this. Yeah. And I was like, and for medical students, we had to pay an extra 80, and me and my mom were just going everywhere to beg, no money, and I lost the admission. And I hated myself, I hated my parent, and I hated God. My mom, the only reason why I went to secondary school, I told her I was at home for 2 years after primary school. My mom went to a school and told them, I'll work for you guys as a cleaner. Olamide is here. My mom was a cleaner in the same school which I attended. Eventually, they promoted her to the tuck shop to sell fruits, food for the kids. For the entire 6 years that I was in secondary school. And after my WAEC, she resigned. That was the only reason I was able to go to school. And after all of these things, right, life now turned out that way. and most of the kids I went to school with, some of them went to do diploma, some went to private university, some went to do pre-degree, some of them traveled out of the country, and I was just me. And I was even the senior prefect, and I didn't get admission. And I hated God. I hated being born into this place. This Ikorodu where nothing happens. And I didn't even know if there was a better world out there. And that was it. And that mentality stayed with me for a long time, that I'm the victim. If my parents were richer, well. If I was not born in this place, well. But the thing is, where you're from isn't where you belong. You belong where you believe you belong. And the person that helped me understand that was when I met Uncle Tunde Onokoya. His name is Tunde Onokoya. He's my mentor, and we're not related. And he told me such a profound story that changed my entire life. He said, why? What's the problem? Oh, it's my parents, is this, is that, is this. I went to Yaba Tech to study computer science. I hate the school. I don't like this thing. So why? It's because of this happened, why? And he told me this story. He said, life is a race. And the thing about the race, there's a starting point. Everyone is here, all lined up to run to the finish line. And the finish line is over there. So a typical race, everyone is at the starting point, and they shoot the gun and everyone start running. But this rigged game of life is not like that. You are behind the starting point. Someone else is already almost at the finish line. Another person is here, another person is here. Everyone is scattered along the lane. And some people have even reached the finish line already. But the beauty of this race of life is that there's no one prize for the first person to finish. There's only a prize for finishing. So even if it takes you 10 years from this place that you are to get to that finish line, that as long as you finish, you get your prize from life, right? And what that meant was those people that are almost at the finish line, maybe they have some privilege, yes. They went to private schools. Some people, maybe governor's son, Dangote's son, they're all there. But you are here. Right? And if you stay here and you do not participate in that race, you will forever be a victim of your own life. But the moment you decide to stand up and you start to make it down to that line, you are participating in your own life. And that is when you take responsibility for yourself. And everything that has happened, your parents, everything, that's why you're at the back. You've dropped all of that burden and you've started to participate in your own life. And you're no longer the victim, right? And you're going, and one day you'll make it down to that finish line, and you get your prize. So participate, and stop blaming everything. As if they just opened something in my head, right? And from that day, I took full responsibility for my life. I started a new company, started to do chess and schools, and gradually, I started to build back. And if I could go back, I think I would have told myself this a lot earlier, that the place where you're from is not where you belong. You belong where you believe you belong. But your story is yours to tell. It doesn't mean you should discard it or you should forget it that you're from this place. It is yours to own, but you must never let it define you, or you must never become a victim of it, right? You must let it help you build strength of character. And now that I look back now, it's easy to connect the dots in hindsight. Because now I now know that it's because I was born in poverty that I can do the work that I do. It's because I didn't study medicine that I can do the work that I do. Else I'll be in one hospital now shouting at... Right, so God always has a plan. Is the one that gives purpose that suits the nature of a man. So everything that defines your nature, is there for a reason. And if I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self that. And if you're here and it's something you struggle with, or a young person that continues to struggle with being the victim of their own story, please tell them to participate in their own lives, because that's what matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tunde Onokoya. And I would like to thank every one of us today. We've heard the story of the boy from Ikorodu who conquered the world at Times Square and is still conquering the world through the lives of children by introducing them to chess. It's truly a privilege to have had this conversation with you. And so, on that note, we are now at the end of our conversation, and I would like to welcome Mr. Adeniji.
Well, let's give it up for Sheila as well. Such a beautiful host. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great conversation.
Mr. Adeniji, for your, thanks.
So, I am Diolamiko. And if you want inside gist about Tunde going up, starting bid is 100K by the way, but I'll just tell you. It's cheap, Abby. Sheila said I should start at $100K. So, All right, so Tunde, that was fantastic. I've known Tunde since we were going up, and his wisdom is still shocking, And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. My note is full. Show of hands if you learned something today. Your hand is, okay, you can see everybody at the back. All right, great. I learned a lot, and I'm just going to say some of those things. Starting from the last thing, which is participate in your own life. Stop being a victim. And the quote that got the room shouting, which is, you belong where you believe you belong. I believe that this resonates with most people, and I'm hoping that that's what you're going to go on with, even if you have other things, but this does highlight that. And personally, for me, it is doing the boring work and keep showing up every day. Today said consistency is more important than intensity. So in our 9 to 5, in that work that you don't like, in your school, just keep showing up and just keep doing the work every day. Today, it was nice hearing you speak, and I'm sure that, like Pinky and the Brain, all of us are going to leave this place wanting to take over the world and actually conquer the world. Thank you again today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we also have Mr. Morris Igugu. And I am trying not to destroy the name. I really am. Okay. Mr. Morris is the CMO, Sterling Bank.
All right, it's been an awesome session. I'm sure that you'll agree with me. I just want to use this opportunity to thank every single person who's been able to make it here today. That you're here shows that you're interested in the knowledge that we've been able to all get today. And I hope that somewhere, the reason why we did this, you will be able to apply it to your own lives as well. All right? Thank you especially for being able to make it Tunde and Sheila for the awesome questions you've asked. I'd like to thank especially as well the Group Chief Marketing Officer who's not able to make it here right now, Ibirakwa Martins. He's the brain behind this. So can we give him a round of applause? I'd like to thank every single Sterling leader who's made it here. And I want to surprisingly give you an option to give us a vote of thanks. Or rather, yeah. So, rather just give us your closing remarks, wrap up the whole thing. Thank you.
Oh.
And this is Mr. Fatai Teller.
All right.
In case he doesn't want to introduce himself.
Okay. Okay, Teller is my name. I work at the Alternative Bank, the best non-interest bank in Nigeria. Watch that space. So, basically, for you Tunde has said a lot of things, but if you want to unpack or pack all of them into one bit, I think it's all about knowledge. So what Tunde has eulogized so far is that at the start, just look at his life lesson. It's like exercise. If you start exercising, you become very weak. Nobody starts doing exercise and becomes strong in day one. Tunde, right? You're very weak at the beginning, vulnerable, hated God, hated everything. We're weak. But as you continue, you become stronger. If there's nothing that you learn from this, just pick that line. When you start exercising, you first become weak. But when you continue, you become strong and stronger And that's all. Thank you, everybody. God bless you.
So on that note, thank you very much. We will now take pictures.
So we'll start with the
Okay.
panelists first. Then, I'm sorry, the speakers and our moderator first.
I'm just a Iran girl for the day.